Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Corner, and welcome to this horror movie review as part of my Days of the Dead convention horror series for the month of February 2023 here. So, for those of you that are new to this series, basically, I'm going to my first big convention in about 5 days, Days of the Dead in Las Vegas. And in prep for that, I'm watching and reviewing movies from my collection. Excuse me, related to guests and celebrities that are going to be at this here convention. So I already have the first two Hellraiser movies reviewed up on my channel. I have Terrifier 2 up on my channel, and I have the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 from the 80s up on my channel. Those are all related to guests that are going to be there. We're going to continue that trend with a series that I hadn't visited before. This is a series that I own the first two movies in it, but I haven't watched a single one of them until this review, obviously. I've now watched the first one for this review, and that is the Paranormal Activity franchise. And more specifically for this review, the first Paranormal Activity from 2007 that I have on DVD here. So, yeah, Micah Sloat and Katie Featherston are going to be at the Days of the Dead convention here in Las Vegas. So that's the reason why I decided to add this to my series of reviews here. So let's just go ahead and get into it, starting with the setup, the premise, and the cast. So Paranormal Activity is a 2007 American supernatural horror film, produced, written, and directed, and wow, this guy did a lot. Produced, written, directed, photographed, and edited by Oren Peli. Peli? It centers on a young couple who are haunted by a supernatural presence in their home. They then set up a camera to document what is haunting them. The film uses found footage conventions that were mirrored in the later films of the series. So basically, it opens with a young couple, Katie and Micah, moved to a new house in San Diego. Katie claims an evil presence has been haunting her since she was a child, so Micah sets up a camera in their bedroom to record any paranormal activity that occurs while they sleep. Katie visits psychic Dr. Fredericks, who suggests Katie is being haunted by a demon that feeds off of negative energy and is intent on tormenting her. He advises not to communicate with the demon without a demonologist, but Mecca continues to film and seek it out. The camera captures many strange occurrences during the night. They start off as minor noises, flickering lights, and bedroom door movements, but over time escalate into violent door slamming, loud thuds, and demonic grunts and screeches. One night, Katie appears to be in a trance. She gets up, stands beside the bed, staring at Micah for 2 hours, goes outside, none of which she recalls the next day. So that's the setup and the premise for the first Paranormal Activity. As far as the cast goes, it's a pretty small one. We have Katie Featherston as Katie, Micah Sloat as Micah, Mark Fredericks as Dr. Fredericks, Amber Armstrong as Amber. I think it's interesting how they used all of the entire cast. They used their real names as their character names in the movie, and their names in real life. So that's interesting. So that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the first Paranormal Activity movie from 2007. Excuse me, guys. I'm still fighting a cold, which hopefully I'm rid of in about 4 days here. But still got some junk in my throat. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie, man, for what it is. I heard this isn't everybody's bag of horror, as a lot of horror isn't. I kind of got into that when I talked about Terrifier 2. I can understand why people that really are into more bloody and gory and kills on screen horror probably aren't going to be a big fan of this series. And the people that like more psychological horror, more sort of, I don't want to say jump scary horror, because I don't feel like this has a lot of that. But more like background horror or simple horror with practical effects, they're going to tend to like these movies more. I enjoyed this movie for what it is, very much in the same vein as the Blair Witch Project from 1999. As I was watching this throughout the whole movie, I was getting Blair Witch Project vibes, even though the stories are completely different. But in terms of the shooting style and just the sort of the ideas, are kind of there the same. So let's just start with the pros or the things that I really liked about this movie. And the thing this movie does really well, just like the Blair Witch Project did, is it builds up tension and suspense phenomenally. I mean, that's really what these movies are based on, and this movie specifically. Um, the movie starts out where you kind of get to know the characters. They got the cameras rolling, or the camera rolling, I should say. Um, a lot of this couple has a lot of flirtation between them, a lot of just fun, lighter, sort of screwing around tones to start the movie with. And as the movie goes on, of course, it ratchets up more and more to where the characters become more serious, the overall tone and atmosphere becomes more serious as shit starts to hit the fan. And it's like going up a steep step a steep set of stairs. It just ratchets up more and more and more. So as a viewer, you're really into it. You're really engaged in this movie. Yeah, they just do a phenomenal job with it. Um, Leading into the very suspenseful, intense moments and scenes that really works. They really work in this movie and engages the viewer. They don't do what a lot of horror movies tend to do, especially nowadays, which is blow their load too early. It's a complete stair climb. It's a complete buildup of suspense and tension, and that's the best thing about this movie. Just like the Blair Witch Project, it really reminds me of that in that regard. I thought the two main leads in this movie, Katie Featherston and Micah Sloat, were both very good in this movie. They had amazing chemistry, as if they were a couple in real life. I had to research to find out that they're not. Um, or that they'd been together for years, and it turns out they weren't. They went to this casting call, just like hundreds of other actors and actresses, and they called these two back together, and they just started to click with the chemistry right off the bat, and yeah, they're really good in the movie, especially Katie Featherston, who's really our most sympathetic character in this movie. Micah Sloat is too, but he's a little bit more of I don't want to say an antagonist. He certainly isn't. The entity is the antagonist, but he's more of a doubter. He's more of a I want to handle this myself and not get help from outside sources. You know, a little bit of his manhood is on the line. You kind of get the sense. He's sympathetic, but Katie Featherston, I think, really brings it home. And as the viewer, she's the one that we really follow here, especially the last half of the movie when things really get ratcheted up. It doesn't work if you don't have a character that really sells it, and she sells it. I thought she was very good, as he was as well. But yeah, we really have sympathy for him. We're really scared for him by the end of the movie and what they're experiencing. So very much a pro there. I love the fact that we never get to see the entity or the demon. Um, Much like the Blair Witch. Once again, you're going to hear me compare the Blair Witch because it really is a comparison. Especially when we probably would have gotten a CGI demon or entity in this movie. Much like the Blair Witch, it's we buy into this movie being, and it's more effective with our buy-in. Wait a minute, my notes don't make sense here. I love the fact that we never see an entity or demon, especially a CGI one. Much like the Blair Witch, to buy in and have the movie be more effective from a horror standpoint with those little practical effect things that he used, those simple things like a swinging light fixture, like noises scratching on the wall, almost a gurgling noise or a grunts, the door moving. It's just those things that are very simple and cost like $1.95 basically to produce tend to be the most effective in a lot of ways, especially for a movie like this one, just like it was for the Blair Witch. You don't need to see the demon. You don't need to see the monster, if you will. And this movie, like that one, like the Blair Witch, does a great job with that, using the simple things that you'd find in any house um, to create tension and horror and really deliver on it. So that's one of my favorite things about the movie, just like it is about the Blair Witch. I find it to be much more effective and creepy because it allows the viewer to use their imagination and not actually see what's antagonizing our characters here. And I have to say too, with this movie, even more so than the Blair Witch, this movie is more relatable to anybody that sees it, especially if you're in a relationship or you're married, you sleep in a bed with somebody else. This movie is probably more terrifying because, especially the scenes where one of the characters gets up and watches the other one for like 2 hours sleep, it kind of leaves a little doubt in your mind when you're done watching this movie, or I'm sure when people were seeing it at the theater, like keeping one eye open to make sure that there isn't anybody watching you for some reason in the middle of the night. So it's very relatable in that regard, and I think that just adds to the horror a lot of people can get out of this type of movie. And then finally, I think the last 15 or 20 minutes are really effective as everything's really ratcheted up. The characters are really ratcheted up and on edge. They're fighting with each other. They really sell it. You really buy in. The last 15 minutes of this movie are really intense. Um, yeah, I thought they really brought it home well, except for the last 5 seconds of the movie, which I'll get into with my cons. But overall, the last 15 minutes of this movie is very effective, and you're pretty much most viewers are going to be white knuckling it by that point, waiting for the big let loose, the big what am I trying to say? The big load blower, if you will. So yeah, those are my pros for Paranormal Activity from 2007. It's certainly not a perfect movie. So getting into some cons, I only have three really, and some of them might be more personal. But like the Blair Witch, the one problem I had with that movie, like this one, is you really have to the viewer really has to suspend disbelief that characters would still be rolling film, that they'd still be using this camera at a certain point where obvious danger is imminent, and characters lives are in jeopardy, like the last half hour of this movie. It's just hard to swallow, and I think it lessens the overall feel of realism that you'd otherwise get in this movie. Now the way they shot it, there's really no way around that, because the viewer has to be able to see what's going on for the ending. But from a realistic standpoint, which is what these movies are trying to do, the Blair Witch did the same thing. It's just hard to imagine. It's just hard to imagine that a character would still be clicking on a camera and filming this when their lives are literally in danger. Um, yeah, that part's just always been a little hard for me to swallow. It's hard for me to swallow with the Blair Witch. It always has been. And it's the same with this movie, because this movie shot a lot like the Blair Witch, other than the fact they have a camera on a tripod and it's set up more um, in a bedroom, although they're still moving around throughout the house with it as well, as opposed to like in the Blair Witch, there's always somebody with a camera on their shoulder. I will say that's another positive for this movie. Unlike the Blair Witch, it's not you don't get as much shaky cam. There's still a little bit as they're going through the house, but because this movie tends to sit on a tripod for at least a quarter of the movie to a third of the movie, it's in a way it's kind of a balance of having like a steady cam, like you'd get in a regular horror movie, and still getting some of that Blair Witch shaky cam. But this movie is a lot better on the shaky cam side than other found footage movies, even the Blair Witch Project. So that's one thing I want to bring up. But getting back to my point, yeah, as a viewer, you just don't buy in quite as much as you otherwise could. But like I said, I don't know if there's a way around it, because the movie has to be filmed somehow. But it is hard to imagine, like I said, that these characters would still be clicking on it and off a camera in the last 10 or 15 minutes. Now, the last 10 minutes of this movie, where we get our last shot of the bedroom, it works a little bit better than it did with the Blair Witch in this movie, because again, it's a camera that's set up on a tripod in their bedroom as they're watching stuff. So from that standpoint, this movie, the buy-in is a little bit better than even the Blair Witch. I hope that all makes sense to you guys for what I'm trying to say there. I'm sure it does. I hope it does. I wasn't overly crazy about the last 5 to 10 seconds of the movie. This is what I meant when I said I really enjoyed the last 15 minutes, but not the last 5 seconds earlier in my prose. No, I'm talking about the theatrical ending. I'm going to get into a little diatribe after I go through my review here on this movie and some of the interesting facts about it. There's actually three different endings that were filmed for this movie. You have the original scripted ending, you have the theatrical ending, and you have the alternate ending to the theatrical ending. So I'm talking about the theatrical ending. This is the one where a character, well, I don't want to give it away, but basically, the last shot of the movie has a character who obviously is possessed at this point, walk back into the bedroom, kneel down. This is hard without giving it away. Basically, my problem is this character, this possessed character, ends up coming towards the camera in a very CGI, bad looking shot for that final horror movie. Oh, that throws the audience back kind of shot. I thought it was hokey, not necessary, especially for this type of movie that was set up. It didn't look good. CGI was definitely used there, and it was a disappointing way to end the movie, the theatrical movie with that, because the other two endings don't end like that. I wish they just had the character sort of smile at the camera and then have it fade to black, basically. So actually, I guess I only had two cons for this movie. I thought I had three. That was my other one. So there was only two that I had for Paranormal Activity. What I wanted to get into is how this movie was made. Now, a lot of people probably know, or if you don't know, this movie was basically made for a nickel. Not really, but like $230,000, and it ended up grossing over 37 million. I believe it's the highest grossing horror movie from an independent standpoint, at least, of all time. I mean, it just made an absolute killing because it was made for so little. That's part of what I meant by having simple practical effects and simple horror things that you can do without having to inject all the expensive CGI and stuff. Um, but this movie attempts to focus on believability rather than action and gore. And Pelly or Peely, however you pronounce his last name, the producer, director, and all the other things, he chose to shoot this movie um, with a home video camera, and deciding on a more raw and stationary format. As I said, set up in the bedroom. The camera was almost always sitting on a tripod or something else, which eliminated the need for a camera crew. It gives a higher degree of plausibility, kind of what I was getting into with my con there. The plausibility is higher than other movies because it's on a tripod in the bedroom, as opposed to somebody, but they're still clicking on the camera even when their lives are in danger. That's kind of what I was saying. But it was created more for the audiences. They were more invested in the story as a result of how they did this. Pelly says the dialogue was natural because there was real no script for this movie. That's the other thing that I find very interesting. Instead, the actors were given outlines of the story and situations to improvise, which is a technique known as retroscripting, also used in the making of the Blair Witch Project. And that's what I thought was so great about the two main leads in this movie, Katie Featherston and Micah Sloat, because their chemistry, you wouldn't have known there wasn't a script. I mean, they connected like scripted movies characters don't. And so but yeah, I thought that was really interesting how they shot this movie. Some like the Blair Witch, some not, but in some ways, this works better than the Blair Witch. Now, it doesn't have quite the same impact on me as the Blair Witch did. Part of that is my age and when the Blair Witch came out. I saw it when I was about 20, and now I'm in my mid 40s. And I'd seen obviously other found footage movies by this time. But this is a much more relatable movie for just about everybody that sees it because of the bedroom setting and the house setting. Um, but yeah, overall, guys, I know I'm kind of all over the place with this movie. Probably not the best review, but I really enjoyed this movie for what it is, and I'm going to give it I think I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. To be honest with you, I really thought this was a well done movie. It's a really good movie to watch with the lights off in your house. Very effective. Good characters, great performances by the two main leads, and just very effective horror with what they did. And obviously, it was successful making a killing at the box office. So, 9 out of 10 for Paranormal Activity. One of the few found footage movies I really like the Blair Witch, like Hell House LLC, like As Above, So Below. Those are my favorite ones. And like I said, this one's a little extra better because it has that steady cam, tripod cam, a single camera video recording. So 9 out of 10 for Paranormal Activity. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen the original Paranormal Activity from 2007. Do you like it? Why not? Down in the comments below. Please like this video and hit the notification bell down below so you don't miss any of my upcoming reviews and videos for this series, including live from Las Vegas videos. I apologize for this video and this not rant, but this my thoughts are kind of all over the place in this review. I apologize for that. But please subscribe to my channel so you not only don't miss the rest of this series, but all the horror content that I have planned for the rest of 2023 coming out on my channel. So hope you enjoyed this review. Hope you're enjoying this series. Hope you're as excited for my videos from Las Vegas as I am to be there and to film them. I'm going to have one more video before I go to Las Vegas, one more movie review. So hope everybody's doing well and stay scared. Thanks for watching. Bye.